Previously on X-Men.
It's Jay. I'm back in for another one, and today I have with me
Epotamus.
Wait, what?
Epotamus Prizzle.
All right, yeah, a little something to it. Okay, you caught me off on that one. Caught me off guard. Ever evolving E Prime. How you been,
Yes,
man?
sir. Man, just same old.
Yeah,
Running.
that's good, but you run with purpose, and that's what counts. That's what it's
Yes,
about.
sir.
Hey, man. So lots went down since our last conversation. When we first talked, we talked about the first 4 episodes, and we thought that those first 4 episodes was a lot. It was a lot going on. The reintroduction, even though it wasn't a reintroduction, but it was. So it served 2 things. It's like I'm replacing you with a better version, but slipping it in real slick. But they did such a good job, it can't help but stand out. It's like, oh, I know you're new. You try to pretend like you the person I knew, but you got to upgrade, and it's very, very obvious and appreciated.
Yes, sir.
So that was really a trip.
They came out swinging.
They did. And like I said, the first episodes started off like with some light stuff. And to me, like in the first episode, I think the biggest thing that really caught me was like, oh, they made Jean pregnant. That's different,
Yeah.
You usually don't see cartoon characters walking around pregnant, right? And I'm like, how are you going to have her as a main character and she's going to be pregnant during the show? Like, how's that work? And they're, making beignets and playing basketball and...
And Scott Beam moonwalking across the floor.
Right. They're beam walking, yeah, and all that kind of stuff. Just like, So who'd have thunk, how episode 5 would like kick in and all that.
Woo.
It was something. So... it's a lot that went on in episodes 5 to 10, right? And if we try to go through the whole thing, we'll spend all day. And I would spend all day happily, but it would take all day to touch on all the things that happen within those episodes. They're 30-minute long episodes, but they're very dense. They have these different timelines and show lines going on. So you got some characters over here, some characters over there. You got plot lines that start on one episode and you got 10 minutes of it. You get 15 more minutes of it in an episode, the next episode over. A lot of deep cuts, a lot of new character introductions.
Yeah.
A lot of character eliminations.
Yeah.
Some things that we kind of wondered how it worked. We kind of saw how it worked. So we got different perspectives of characters that we love and never really seen done in that way. Because I know, like, in the first X-Men show that came out back in the 90s, because of the way it was set up and the team that they had, I never really got the team I wanted. So I wanted people like Colossus on there. I wanted people like Nightcrawler on there. Just certain ones wasn't on there. And our Iceman or Angel, like the original crew. And so their way of fixing that or making up for it, they were introduced to characters, but they'd be kind of like not in the context that you would want them. Like they'll come across Colossus in an episode and he's working construction or demolition or something, or Nightcrawler, they come across Nightcrawler and they introduce him, but then he doesn't stay in the show. He's not one of the main characters, but you get a chance to see them, but it's not in the context that you want. And so they made up for a lot of that stuff, man. It was just like, it was a sight to see. A lot of times I couldn't believe what I was watching.
The relationships.
Yes.
Like the whole relationship between him and Rogue and them recognizing each other as family was just...
Yes.
That was amazing. That was awesome.
And it's funny because they met before in the first show and they, discovered that Mystique was their mom and stuff. And I was surprised that Mystique wasn't even brought up in this, not by name, and not also, they didn't show her. And the person I thought would maybe Mystique, she wasn't Mystique. So it was a trip to see how a character like that was kind of not included. I'm not mad at it, but I was just kind of, I guess I don't know. I was kind of surprised that she wasn't in there because she was kind of heavily used before. And when you have like Nightcrawler and And Rogue, you would think that she would have been one of the ones that they would have kind of leaned on or brought up. But yeah. But what we did see in the comic book, you would see how, you know, he would bamf and do his little teleportation thing. And we got a chance to see what it looks like to be somebody attached to him when he's kind of going through.
Yeah.
And that was a trip.
Yes, it was.
I've never seen that touched on like that. And I'm like, wait, what? If Wolverine got pulled in because he was up there transporting those fools out of there. He's taking care of the bad guys. And Wolverine happened to have his claws on somebody when it happened. So he got pulled in too.
Yeah, it's like they were entering into you know, like on Star Wars when they're about to jump to light speed.
Right. Went through this little rift thing, but yeah, so it was so much cool stuff that kind of went through, man. And one of the big things that kind of came up, which is a trip in episode 5, was it's called Remember It, and that was kind of like the whole thing with Genosha and the Gambit and Rogue and Magneto love triangle and genocide and everything else. Like, ooh, it was just so damn heavy. It was just so heavy. I can't believe that was a 30-minute episode, 30-minute cartoon. First of all, 30-minute cartoon.
And it lingered, and like it takes you after, and I was like, I hurt inside.
Oh yeah.
Man.
Just the choices. You know, okay, when something's condensed that much, you really got to pick the important parts to just say it. And their shorthand is impeccable. Now, sometimes it's not as smooth as it could be, but for the most part, considering what they are whittling down, the choices are superb. Like, they do all the shots that you need to get that feeling across or to get that point across. Like,
they're doing like whole runs.
Yes.
In like 10 to 15 minutes.
Yes.
And you don't feel like you're cheated.
Right.
For the most part.
Right. Because in this episode, you got the politics of everything, you know, the whole thing with Genosha. You got the whole thing of them wanting, you know, Magneto to be, you know, representing them and stuff like that. He wants his queen, so he's pulling Rogue into that mess, and she's trying to, like, you know, it's just all that stuff. And
the resolution of Madeline Pryor and her and Nathan, and her relationship with Jean and
Scott. And there's cyber connecting, and she don't like it and all this other kind of stuff. It's just, and it's complicated. It's like, that's the mother of my child, you know, and it's just, man, it's just
yeah.
But the scene that really pops out in the episode is like when, you know, the Sentinels come and it's just this big explosion, right? And you just see these flashes and you see these hands getting thrown, you know, like it's just blacking out. Like you seeing some of the trauma, and you see like things are just getting thrown about, and it's just like, it was just wow. Like that, it's something like you see like in a war movie or something like that. But it was just so powerful.
They did a good job of drawing the audience in to go like, this is what it feels like to be in this like chaotic situation, and that fear and that like.
Right.
That feeling of like, are we gonna make it, and look at all the destruction around, and
right, because a lot of times they just cut to a scene and everybody's laid out and that's it, right? But this kind of showed you, like, you know, in between that, it was very creative. Like I said, it's just like, it's like you were in the middle of it and you just kind of disoriented and you trying to figure out what's going on, and it's just like, yeah, and it just, you know. And that whole thing with Gambit, man, I didn't see that coming. I didn't see that coming, and just the way it was done, it was just like, that animation is something. So So what did you think of the passing of Gambit?
I mean, yeah, it was heartbreaking. I mean, but you know, Gambit was going out like a G.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, they managed to make it like impactful,
right?
Not cheesy.
Right.
It had genuine depth to it.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't cheap at all.
Right.
And I'm glad that they have let it linger, you know, because it'd be easy to bring him back the next episode or something like that.
That's normally how that kind of thing goes too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he will be back, but I think they're gonna do a good job of doing it the long way around, which as they should.
Right. I agree. Even the scene where he had like Magneto, he was trying to protect Leech, and that was like a call back to promising that he would protect him and all that. And it was just like that was heavy. The aftermath with Rogue and Remy gone and Magneto allegedly gone. It was just too much, and it was a whole other thing. I like how this show doesn't really hold back. They showed the tragedy of the situation. It wasn't glossed over. It felt heavy. You saw bodies, you saw blood, you saw crying and tears and fallout because of the situation and stuff. And and it was just beautiful how Gambit was able to save the day in only the way that he could.
Yeah.
So
and the emotions of dealing with that type of situation presented in genuine fashion. Nothing seemed like cheap. It seemed, that's how people react to that. If your tribe or your group, that's how you would react.
Right. So I thought all that stuff was handled really well. It was amazing.
And everyone reacted according to their character too. That's
True.
what I liked. Yeah. Scott, Beast, Wolverine,
right.
Storm, everyone was like, nothing felt like, they wouldn't be that way.
Right. No, it was very powerful. It was very powerful. And then like in episode 6, I think it was the Life Death part 2, when you got the resolve with Storm, resolving her issues, getting her powers back. They touched a little bit on Xavier and Alondra in that situation, which I knew he wasn't dead because, original show, he ended up being taken by her to try to fix him. So we got to see the other side of that. That was kind of interesting to see those characters in that world and his place in it. Like I said, we got a chance to see more Forge and Storm and her working out and getting her abilities back, which I thought was very interesting episode, interesting take on her journey of pulling herself back. But I think the best part of it for me was the fact of seeing her in her original costume, even though it was a little bit Sailor Moonish as far as how she got it, but I'll allow it.
the hair growing back.
right. But I allow it,
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of just one of those things you like, everything else is so superb. You just let that go.
Yeah, it was funny because I thought it was kind of weird that they would go back to that classic outfit, right? Considering that, even in the cartoon, the original show, she didn't have that costume. So I thought it was interesting that it was almost like the mohawk. Well, she had the big hair.
Yeah.
Yeah, she had the big hair in that white or silvery costume. And then she had the mohawk with the silvery costume. So I thought it was kind of interesting for it to revert back to, for us, the original
year one.
costume.
Yeah.
Right. But then, they had a plan. So they were playing a long game that I didn't know what that was about, but then eventually
everyone got to come up.
Right.
Or they go back.
So they was laying track to a location I didn't know they were trying to go to, but I was very happy when I realized what that was for, But it was a win. It was a win-win though.
As soon as Scott got that hood on, I was like, Jason over there. I was like, Jason over there. I know Jason rewinded like 3 times.
Yeah.
Screaming at the screen.
Exactly. I saw those costumes. Oh man, I'm like, they go in there. Oh, they go in there.
Wolverine in the brown. That was my moment right there, man.
Me too. That was my Wolverine. I love that. That's what.
Mine too, man. Mine too.
Good times in that suit.
Yes. So many good times in that suit. I wish they would just go back to that suit, to be honest.
Right, and I thought they never was. It was so interesting because he had that suit for so long in the comics, and then eventually, later on, they went back to the yellow and blue one. And it's funny how the yellow blue one kind of stuck. Because really, that to me, when I was into it, that was his main costume all the time.
That was his main,
So it's just weird that how the yellow one got more popular. But I think just with Jim Lee and his art and stuff like that, of course, he makes it look good. But it's just funny how that yellow one kind of took the place, even though it kind of earned his place with me with that brown one.
Yeah, his pivotal moments in history,
right,
is that brown one.
Right.
That red belt.
Yeah. So. And I always liked how they did it with the arms, to kind of under the arms to kind of cut.
Yes.
Yeah, it had the thing here, and then it cut under the arms like that. So I thought that was pretty. I liked the design of it. As simple as it was still kind of had a little swag to it.
Oh man, and the Rita Jr. man.
Yeah.
Woo! Those years in Japan, buddy. Whoa, buddy.
Yeah. There was some good years. He was doing this assassin thing. So that was
Man.
dope. I guess it was in episode 7, Bright Eyes. That's when they kind of laid Remy to rest, and they had Nightcrawler doing a eulogy, which I thought was pretty dope. And the
Yes.
words he said really spoke to, like, you gotta really know the characters to speak to the characters like that. The person who's writing and directing and all that kind of stuff, they have to understand what they're doing. And like you said, everybody stuck to code. Everybody stuck to who they were and the way they dealt with it, you know? And so, as always, Nightcrawler's insightful. Normally he's jokey and happy, which I like they do that too, but they have him very insightful and deep. And,
Yes.
and when he talking to people who relates to his issues and stuff he had, when he talked about family and how he was too blue for his mom. Sometimes you make your own family when you don't have your own that's given to you, so you make your own family. So just all this insightful stuff that would have to come from him, and he's speaking of it from his own experience, not from him just, you know, he's a joke the whole time and he just pull out this insightful, thoughtful thing for the moment, and then he goes back to being silly again. That's not how they're doing that.
Yeah, no, Curtis is definitely the heart and the hope
Yes.
of the team in a lot of incarnations.
Right. And I even liked how they even talked about how Jubilee was upset and says, Rogue, she's not even here, and she supposedly loved him. And he's like, oh, you know, like everybody deals with it differently, and almost kind of like, you know, oh, good luck to whoever she comes across in her journeys, because what she's on right now, you don't want no part of. And everybody grieves the way they grieve.
Man, speaking of the whole Captain America thing, that was because I remember there's a part that takes place later in the comics. It's after Xavier's died for a while, and Scott's kind of walked away from Xavier's dream. And it's before they all become Phoenix for a while. But Scott is just now starting to kind of like be done with all of the BS. And there's this one part when a mutant child is being attacked, and they show up to like save the child, and then, you know, Scott's being pretty heavy-handed about it, and Captain America shows up, and he's like trying to give Scott the lecture. And Scott's all like, it's nice that you coming in here with that privilege, because all those other times that we was getting stepped on.
Tired of being stepped on. I'm tired of being stepped on. I'm tired of being stepped on.
You had no words, but now you're gonna be in my face with this BS? And Rogue kind of gave him that same energy, like, oh, you cool when we getting stomped. But now when I want to, you know, take a knee at the game, you got something to say.
Right.
You better kick rocks with that.
Right. That's funny. Yeah, I thought it was kind of interesting. Now, part of me kind of felt when the whole thing came up with Captain America, it kind of threw me off. Now, at first, I was in shock just because of the way he acted, right? Because I got kind of spoiled with Chris Evans.
Yeah.
I got spoiled with that Captain America that has no time for nonsense at all, right?
Yes.
Versus the Boy Scout that he stayed true to in the comics and the cartoons. So I had to think like, okay, this is not the movies, and yes, this is more in line with how he was in the cartoons and how he was in the comics in the beginning. And this is in the 90s too. But my first thing was like this non-tolerance kind of like screw the government in a second if it's against the people, like that. He's not that Captain America. So it took me a minute just to be like, oh well.
Here's the thing though, Cap was he was that character in the comic books. If there was a time when Cap didn't agree with the U.S. government,
that was later.
And he would walk away. No, he did it during the time before he became Nomad.
Nomad, right?
Yeah, and when he became just the captain, and the guy who became U.S. agent became Captain America. Yeah, that was early, but still, he wasn't the dude that was stepping up for mutants, and it wasn't till way later, like in the last 10 years of our time, that he finally was like, you know, after Civil War, when he's like, hey, yeah, I could have, I should have. Right. Well, and the mutants at that time were yeah, of course. Yeah. You couldn't see it until you lived it. Right. That's called empathy, Cap.
Right. But I think he's just used to, I don't know. I think he just was used to the world matching him. And so when he saw the world wasn't the way he remembered, or and the thing about it, could have always been corruption, but it's almost like anybody who's no longer naive, you just get kind of heavy with everything real quick. Like you don't trust anything coming in. Like you gave it a lot of leeway when you trusted it, but once you stop trusting it, then everything looks like a problem possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I said, I don't know. It kind of threw me off when I saw him, but I understood that made sense because like he said, I can't go to Mexico with red, white, and blue going around punching people and stuff over there. So that makes sense that he wouldn't. But like I said, I think I got spoiled with Chris Evans and and how he would probably handle that today, you know. But it was crazy when she just took his shield, just threw it. Like, well, you won't be needing this since you're not helping out. I guess you won't be needing this. You won't be needing this shield. So I thought that was pretty.
Did she throw it to Mexico?
Probably. Go get it. Like Biff when he was walking the kids and they had the ball.
Is this your ball? Is this your ball? You want it back? Go get it!
Go get it! The kid's like, hey! So she pulled a Biff on him. But yeah, and then it was crazy too because we introduced like Colonel Ross in there, and he's in the Hulk bunker, and the bunker didn't mean nothing because she made a comment talking about Daddy always said it's more easy to break into jail than to break out. I was like, and then hemmed him up. Oh, she was on a mission, man. It wasn't no joke, man. She was doing her thing. She even dropped the fool from the from the buildings. It was just crazy. They were just doing stuff in this one, and Wolverine, his smart ass, like
yeah,
we all wanted to do it. We did want to do it, but it's just like, is that who we morphed like? Is that who we are now? And it was just like, man. Yeah, and then you got Wolverine just shanking people and stuff, and it's crazy because it's kind of like, okay, I know that they have this, they're corrupted, right, and they're kind of not themselves, but they still human, right, and aren't they gonna probably get converted back? And he's just slicing the dice. These one ain't coming back. No recalls on these. You don't no longer have an arm or head and all this kind of like. So no redemption? Like you don't think somebody they ain't gonna undo it? There's no vaccine. They ain't gonna fix it.
Logan was all like, "He'll live."
He was. They were getting shaked. It was just crazy. I'm just like, now part of me was like, "This is dope."
You took off his arm.
He'll
live. He'll live.
Yeah, because normally they'll just play it off like you're fighting robots and things like this, so you could just be savage. But like I said, they were still pretty human, and he did not care. He was tearing them up.
Yeah. He a year one Logan.
Yeah.
He the one that sliced and ties to get out of Department H. Logan.
Yeah. Right. He took it back. He took it back with him. So, like when he's fighting those ninjas and all that, like he wasn't playing. And then continuously through the show and stuff, you still got the Summers, and you got the Summers together. You got Scott and Jean and Cable, and they doing their thing. Man, let's show them how the Summers do it. They just, it was just crazy. Just the three together, and they doing all their kind of stuff, and he's calling out calls, and I'll get the debris, you hold up the building, and all this other, and you drive the car and you blast and I'll clear away. It's just all this stuff. And it's like, Dad, you got a Porsche? It was just all these moments with them just getting their family time in.
The tingles, man. It gave you the
Right. They saving all those money shots for the Summers family, man. Like there's these moments where they ghost rode that Porsche and it blew up some stuff, and they're in this bubble that's protecting them, and it's just those explosions behind them. They just all posed up, and it's just like they get all the money shots. It's just
man.
It should be cliche, but you never seen it done like this with these characters. It's like it's brand new again. It's like an old gift you unopen and like you surprised and excited again. But it's just the fact that they're doing it in the way that they're doing it. It's amazing, man. It's amazing. And
everyone's getting their time too. It's not Wolverine and some X-Men.
No,
this is the X-Men.
Yeah, and I kind of heard on purpose that Bo was saying that it wasn't going to be the Wolverine show. And
good.
Isn't it interesting how without it being a Wolverine show, how you still get a lot of Wolverine and a lot of his arc and a lot of his feelings, a lot of his behaviors and stuff like that. And on top of that, all the other X-Men get a chance to express themselves and be actual characters as well.
Yeah.
And it still works. I'm not missing Wolverine. He's still in
Yeah.
there a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot. And he's doing a lot more fighting than he was
Doing what he does
talking.
best.
Right. Right.
Slicing fools.
He's too busy to be doing any talking. You know, man of few words, just because
Yeah.
he's have a lot of action going on. So yeah, so that was pretty dope. The whole thing with the attack and all that kind of stuff, and the mansion getting destroyed, and Xavier coming back, and all that stuff, and just how everything was kind of tied together. What do you think of the main baddie?
Bastion.
Yeah,
So I wasn't a huge fan of him in the comic books,
yeah,
but I think they did a great job with him. I think they took a different avenue that I don't remember being that way in the comic book. Like, I don't remember, because in the show he was kind of like he's like a mutant,
yeah,
but like a techno-organic mutation,
yeah,
which is cool because it really plays into the theme.
hmm
Actually, I think it's a better presentation than what we actually got in the books back in the day.
yeah. It seemed very streamlined. Yeah, very streamlined, and yeah. And the fact that he could have been an X-Men too, because Xavier actually went to recruit him, but his mom
Yeah.
heard the word mutant and slammed the door
Yeah.
in his face. So that was kind of interesting in how he was almost taking the side of the bigots and stuff, and not his own people in a way. Because I guess in a way he probably don't consider himself, or maybe he has self-hate or whatever. It's just interesting how it plays on a whole bunch of different levels. And also, his intentions and stuff. Because he was even bringing up stuff that I thought was interesting. And it's funny because they're just kind of refacing normal stuff that we're going through, which is brilliant because that's the way you should do it. Why make up stuff when you already have, something in front of you that you could borrow from that's going to really speak to what you're trying to say? Because he was like, so, by kind of clearing out the mutants, then, they're taking jobs from people. Like, they'll hire one person to take over a job that take 10 men. They could do it with one. So what about the jobs for the humans? And then what if what happened to the taxi drivers? When you get teleporters, they could just teleport somebody to the. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
This sounds familiar. This sounds familiar. Some of these talking points.
I remember reading an article some years back, and I think it was in Wizard Magazine. Man, showing our age now. You remember Wizard Magazine?
Yes, I do. Wait, do you remember the ad that was in one of the Wizard magazines that I thought was hilarious, that was crazy? And it had something to do with somebody looking for somebody?
No, which one was that?
Jamie. He was looking for his other...
Oh.
Multiple man had on one ad looking for...
Yes, looking for his other... one of his other clones.
Close himself. He's like, wanted it, looking for him. He's missing, and we're looking for him. We want him to come home. That was so crazy. But I thought that was just so witty and just...
I miss that magazine.
Me too.
I'm surprised it hasn't come back as an online type of thing or an Instagram, page or something.
Or it should be a podcast or a show.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
YouTube. Yeah.
Same kind of topics and same kind of, personalities and, because it had a tone to it, had a way about it, a sense of humor and stuff about it.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, sorry to interrupt, but you were saying like...
No. So this writer was writing a thing about, I think he was talking about Captain America. He was on Captain America. And his big thing was like, he's like, I'm not a fan of having Cap fight like ISIS, or the Taliban.
Yeah.
And it's like, why would you have them fight those people when they have AIM and Hydra? It's like the metaphor already exists.
Yeah.
So you don't need to like be so on the nose when it's already there.
Yeah.
Like, it shouldn't be hard to be topical. I think he was talking about like people are upset with like what they feel comics being preachy, and it's like comics have always talked about current affairs and
right.
quote unquote politics or whatever. It's like the only difference is that it was disguised, because instead of it being ISIS, it was AIM,
right.
or it was Hydra, or was all of, whatever other Friends of Humanity, whatever. So it, like you said, it's there.
Yeah.
The surrogates that are already put in place.
Right, right. And I think people just extra sensitive to stuff, and it's almost like since we got a hijack word that we could use, and they use it as the word woke is not even used correctly, and everybody's using it for everything, and it's just
Oh my
amazing
God.
how, but it just makes everybody sensitive to everything. It's just like,
Yeah.
even when it's used, I understand when it's used sometimes, and I understand where it could apply to what's being said, but 9 times out of 10 it's not used correctly. You know,
it's not.
and so it's just interesting. But yeah,
That
comic
whole
books
thing is
always says that.
ridiculous.
Yeah, so it's just all a lot. Yeah, I think people are just sensitive, and the truth is, it's kind of like, the truth of it. Unfortunately, even if it's something you like, it may not just be for you for whatever reason. And if it's speaking to something you don't want to hear, you guys gotta turn it off or whatever. But to act like things that are, like I said, comic books, they always got an agenda. Songs always have an agenda. Movies always have an agenda. So what don't? It's just a matter of, do you want to hear what they're saying or not? But to think somebody's gonna be sitting there spinning in a circle for an hour, 2 hours, or 30 minutes, not saying nothing or not leaning towards something, you're out your mind.
Yeah.
Ain't no way. Then why would you sitting there watching it? You wouldn't. You wouldn't. So yeah, so the whole Genosha thing, that was hella crazy, and it turned Magneto into the old Magneto after he done warned them folks not to fool with him.
Man.
But they tried him. They tried him.
So I admit, for a second, I was a little miffed with the X-Men. Wolverine was trying to piss me off. After what happened on Genosha,
Yeah.
and Professor X was starting to piss, they were all kind of pissing me off because I was like, did you guys not see what happened? Like they were acting like Sunspot and Rogue were crazy for being with Magneto. Now, I'm going to say I'm a long time Magneto sympathizer. So,
True.
so I could be a little biased in this, but I'm looking at the situation and I'm thinking, how could you not be on Magneto's side? I mean, they went up to Asteroid M, especially Wolverine, with a mission.
Yeah.
And I'm like, y'all didn't just see what happened? Did y'all not just see what happened? Especially Wolverine, you would kill somebody look at you crazy,
Right.
and y'all didn't just see what happened, and you gonna get mad at Magneto for doing what he did?
Okay.
Yeah. Ugh.
Okay.
It panned out fine, but it pissed me off for a second.
Yeah, I think that Magneto's move was too hard, and I thought Xavier's was too soft. It had to be somewhere in the middle. So I hear what you're saying, but I think that it being so drastic is the reason why a lot more of the X-Men didn't, choose the other side. Because even with what Magneto ended up doing, right, with the whole, EMP, with that whole thing, just think of all the stuff that just stopped.
Yeah.
How many lives are just lost just off of that. And it's not even the ones you want to get necessarily. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't. Now, if he went around like, we're going to go handle the ones we need to handle, that would have been different. But you saying everybody, it's not like it's the good ones. They're getting, it's going to be a lot of innocent lives. And I understand that's what happened in Genosha. I understand. So.
But when you have an enemy that can take any of those innocent lives and make them into your enemy,
yeah.
What choice do you have? If the only way that you have to stop your enemy is to do that, what choice do you have? Just to play devil's advocate.
Then I would say that would be just killing everybody then, or pretty much everybody. That's a lot of babies with the bathwater.
Is he really directly killing people? We existed on this planet before electricity was around.
True. But I'm talking about the ones that's on the planes, or the ones that's on respirators, or the ones in the middle of surgery, or the ones.
You mean all those people that could be turned into Prime Sentinels in any minute now?
Well, anybody could. If that's the case, then just blow up the Matrix. Anybody could be potentially an agent. So why not just unplug it? Because you could hurt so many other ones, right?
Just playing devil's advocate.
Yeah.
Any of those people were they protesting when my people was gone? That's what I want to know. If you ain't an ally, you an enemy.
Right. Well, that's fair. I'm not saying it's not fair. I'm just saying, like, it's almost like the scalpel or the hammer, and it's just like, they both handle the business, but one is kind of like, you're picking out and trying to, which might take a little more time, for sure. But then the hammer gets everything and makes sure it's good and smashed. But then, you know, you're smashing everything.
Hey man, if you ain't anti-mutant racist, it's not enough to be not mutant racist. You need to be anti-mutant racist.
You know, because like I said, it made sense because like he did stop them. He did stop them because a lot of people were corrupted and stuff. But then, you know, I put it like this: for the ones that they were trying to stop, I think it was definitely there were less people on the planet that would have been harmed by that than those corrupted people being stopped. I'll say that because they didn't corrupt the whole world. They just corrupted volunteers who didn't like mutants. So it wasn't like that many people. Now they were powerful and all this other kind of stuff, but it's not like they had like a quarter of the world were those. No. So you're gonna mess up the whole world for that group? I don't know. It's heavy-handed, but I understand. You know my temperament, so I probably fool around and do something stupid too. So you know.
This from the man who give his kids hate fries and hate shakes and hate burgers.
Say what?
I'm just remembering something.
Are you don't bring outside stuff in? Don't bring no outside. You bring outside mess into this. I don't want to even ask, but I don't even want to ask or clarify. Do not put don't put outside Jason in.
Let me keep it clean. I'm gonna keep it clean.
That was about to be bad. I'm sure. I'm sure that was about to be bad. Yeah. Don't bring dirty shoes in the house. Don't come walking on clean floors with dirty shoes. Don't do it. And the fact that I know it's crazy is because it sounded familiar, but I was still like, what? That's how I knew it had to be something off because it sounded familiar enough to be like, wait a minute. It is crazy enough to sound familiar. And also crazy enough for me to forget. Because I probably said so much mess that half the mess I can't remember until one of y'all remind me. And I'll be like, oh, okay. That sounds like something I would have said. Oh, boy. But yeah. I would, yeah. I thought that, yeah, because you would think Wolverine, yeah, but some of that stuff is plots. You know, they couldn't have went. But
yeah.
But you know what, too? Also, it was, you know, Cyclops did speak to Xavier in a way as far as like, hey, you know, like I hear you, but you know, because even when it came to him, you know, why'd you put Magneto in charge and all this other kind of stuff, like everybody wasn't in the best place with the professor.
The situation anyway. Yeah.
So they were just kind of being good students more so than they were, you know, agreeing with what the parent is saying. Like, you're not my favorite parent, but at least you're the parent that feeds me. So I'll give you that, you know, I'll roll with you. Because really, I think they kind of, even though they go on their missions and get kind of like, you know, direction from the professor, you know, everybody kind of does it their way anyway.
Yeah.
So, you know, because I'm sure the professor wouldn't want Wolverine tearing up folks like he was. You know what I mean? Like, we could save them. They're possible. You know, like, no, they're gone. And Nightcrawler too. I was a little surprised, but he was so dope that I didn't mind. So, you know, when he had that tail sword and the swords in his hands and he just like tearing people, it was beautiful. That shot of him and Wolverine kind of back to back doing their thing and just clearing house. Beautiful.
Oh man.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah, but they got attacked and the mansion got destroyed and that was the whole thing. And Xavier got there and saw that his yellow chair was destroyed, so he had to go back to the old school one with the blanket. And like I said, they slowly but surely reverting back. And then they went to the other castle with all their backup stuff. And I saw that wardrobe with the display case, kind of like Batman has in the Batcave with all the Robins and the bat suits and stuff. And I saw those classic suits. I'm like, oh, we gonna go there? And did they go there? Of course they went there. And it was a sight to see. I saw Cyclops in that outfit, man. That took me... Okay. Magneto had his original costume back, which I love. That other costume, I wasn't trying to hear it, but whatever. But
Yeah.
seeing him back in his original costume, doing his old thing again, and to have like Nightcrawler there with the team and stuff, and you had Jean, and so
That's my favorite Rogue one too. That's
Yes,
my
me
favorite
too.
Rogue.
Me too.
That dark green one with the white.
that's when she was
Yeah.
bad.
Yes.
She
Yes.
still had an edge to her. If she would have had that short haircut, it'd have been perfect. But that,
Yeah.
but
That's
that,
when Wolverine had to take her under his wing and be like,
Exactly.
"Listen, I know how you feel, but you
Yeah.
can't be cutting up that bad."
right, and that's coming from somebody who understands. Yeah. So, and then Magneto, Astro M pulled it out of the water, because he sank it in the first show, and so he pulled it back out just to, have his old digs back. And it was so crazy because it was so Pride of the X-Men with those characters and those original
Yes.
costumes and him and his
Yes.
costume and his pulsating globe around Magneto. That was straight up
Nice
callback
callback.
to that.
Yes, it was.
And almost had all the same characters. Instead of
And
Dazzler, you had Jubilee and all that.
Yes.
It was a nice
I was
call.
there for it.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Even the color of Astro, just everything. The colors and almost the animation and it was so on point. It was
Man.
beautiful to see. It was beautiful to see because we love us some Pride of the X-Men.
Oh yeah.
So that was really, really dope. Oh boy, it was just so much going on, man. It was just so much going on.
They resolved the whole. I was pissed with the X-Men, but the resolution, like,
Mhm.
yeah, they did it really well. Like, him, Xavier, and him, and
Yeah,
in the astral plane dealing with that, and
yeah,
the little fight just kept coming though. Like,
yeah,
stuff was happening, and I was just like, oh man. And I thought for sure they were going to end it on that, and then something else would happen, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh man, okay, they're going to end it on that, and then oh man, oh, and what? Wolverine just did what?
yeah,
And then like, oh, Magneto just did what?
yeah. That was just like I screamed. I screamed and rewound it and went back to the whole fight and screamed again. It was just like
Man,
I didn't know.
I couldn't imagine that they would have done that.
No. Yeah. So what we're speaking about is the whole thing with Wolverine shanking Magneto, and they showed it, and they showed the blood, they showed the claws moving, and they panned
Yeah.
out slow, and then Magneto turned around, looked over his shoulder, and you see, Wolverine claws retracting, and he's like, like he got worms in his skin or whatever, and that money shot, that was crazy.
Yeah.
I felt that, and that was a still shot.
Yeah.
and I felt that. That was crazy.
I still have that issue.
That's so crazy. And he's just screaming, Magnus, no! What did he tried to kill me.
Yeah, Magneto's like, Magnus
Yeah.
my ass.
Right. He drew first blood.
Yeah, he's like, you weren't yelling Wolverine no when he was stabbing
Right.
me up a minute ago.
Exactly. And then you had the whole thing with Xavier and Magneto's mind and all that stuff, and just this show was just so beautiful. It was just so well done. It covered so much. It covered
So
hard
much.
topics. It streamlined stories. All that stuff. It's like it did what we want. As far as like we think we want something exactly like how we first got it, and the truth is that we don't. Because sometimes the way it was when you're younger, you take it a certain kind of way and you think it's good. Like you think McDonald's is good, right? Until you get older and you be like, you'll do it for nostalgia, but it's not the best burger, right? And so it's almost like having that perfect burger, but it actually being a good burger. It's just like, yeah, we wouldn't have wanted it because they would have did how it was. We would have complained and really gave it a hard time. This should have been easily clownable. This should have been so. I just knew that it's gonna stick to how the first one was and just be campy and all that kind of stuff. It played it all straight and they streamlined it where it made sense. Like this played as if it was live action. Like it wasn't. Where was the campy stuff? Where was the stuff that we wasn't supposed to believe? Where was the over the top villains that even when they were over the top, they still played well? Like they seem more realistic than some of the stuff I saw in the Thor movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this is.
Yeah.
You know, like they took out all the stuff that didn't make sense, and you still felt like you was watching it like you were supposed to. Like you still had that shorthand. You still was watching, and it made sense. You know, and it's just like this is gonna ruin. Like I said, it's ruining the game for anything coming behind it. Like you gotta have to be on point. Like this is like yeah. And I'm not sure if you, I don't know if you started watching Invincible or not, but that's equivalent to this. But this is even different than that. And Invincible is like the thing that I saw that's recent times that kind of took it played campy and classic, but modern, and it didn't, same stories, different timeline. And I love that because it was like, this is not a joke. It's not a joke to them, and it's not a joke to us. But you're going through the same things, and it was just like, man, like I said, it was just, this had so much, and it was just like,
they did a very good job of like separating out and saying, okay, what are the nostalgic elements?
Right.
We'll keep that and then discard all of the stuff that you know.
Yeah, and nothing was like you would be like, man, why'd you do it like that? Like, you know, because even with the whole thing with some of the decisions, like you said with the X-Men and some of the stuff that that Professor said, and some of his reasoning and stuff like that, even though it's like not ideal, it's not far-fetched for the world that they're showing us, right?
Yeah,
you know?
no, the X-Men they acted within character.
Right.
So, I mean, I think that's why, I mean, yes, what they did pissed me off, but like I said, I'm a long-time Magneto sympathizer.
Yeah.
And even though the actions that they took annoyed me, none of them were outside of expectations for how the characters would react.
Right. Yeah.
Who the characters are and the situation that they're in.
Right.
Like Magneto showed up and he did prove something to them, but he wasn't there that long.
Right.
Enough for them to totally, trust him.
Right.
So,
but you could tell. But I like the fact that that they had issues with what's being told to them and what's being said. They're reluctant, but they respect the professor or respect the leadership, and they go with it. Just like when they dealt with Magneto. Like I know everybody wasn't happy, but they went along because that's what they was instructed to. Like we have our feelings, but our allegiance is to the team, and this is what it is. So I like that. It wasn't like everybody just smiling, going along like I agree. It was kind of like, well, like I said, when Rogue kind of got out of character, well, she got back into character. It was hard for some of them to see, but then also, like you said, for all the Morphs that was kind of like, is this what we are now? To Wolverine, like, hey, I wanted to do it, everybody kind of have a take on it. Everybody has a feeling about it,
mm-hmm.
And so I like that versus just like, because it could have been done in a crazy way where like, man, they don't do that kind of thing. Because we've seen things where you have beloved characters do things that we didn't think they should be doing. And the way it was done, it wasn't done in a satisfactory way where everybody felt like they understood or could live with it.
Yeah.
They did some stuff in here that we understood and we could live with it.
Yeah. I think good writers, you can get your character pretty much to any place if you do it right. If you give them the proper motivation, you can get Anakin to Darth.
Yeah.
You just need the proper motivation.
Right. And even though Beau DeMayo didn't write all the episodes, I could tell the ones he wrote was really sharp. And then the ones that other people wrote, you could tell that they were fine, but they wasn't as tight. But even as tight as they were, that was still with his supervision overseeing all that stuff. Don't get it twisted on who's writing and directing or whatever. That's his vision. That's his, like, no, we can't have that. You can put that in. No, you can't. So if people see certain episodes, oh, he wasn't on that one. He's on it. So don't get it twisted. It was no,
Well, he's a showrunner. He was a showrunner, so it's all, you got to go through him.
But a real active one as far as writing and overseeing and stuff like that too. like I said, we know he has a second season, and after that,
I think he wrote half of the third or part of the third one too.
I'm not for sure. I know for sure the second one, but because they said they're trying to find writers for the third one, and I'm like, why y'all even telling anybody? I would keep that on the under. I wouldn't even say anything. I would kind of not say nothing and let people just watch it until until people start talking, then you bring it up. But I wouldn't even, like, it's so loaded. I wouldn't even bring it up. But so what do you think of the overall ending of season 1 with the whole thing with, you know, our X-Men are saving the day? You know, you got the asteroid being used as a weapon of destruction. You have the government trying to take out Magneto. You have Askin trying to do his thing. So everybody, it's almost like a 3-way duel.
Yeah.
And everybody got their pistols out aiming for each other. And the X-Men do what they do and save the day, but it's not without cost. And so it almost seems as if, you know, they were all sacrificed.
Yeah.
But then we shortly see and find out, which I'm glad, because because even the way they even played it with talking about, like, you know, who's still alive, let's see if we could rebuild some teams. They even went there.
Yeah.
They had the board out.
Yeah.
Oh, they may be missing. I think they're still here. Or you think, you know, they still around, but we're not for sure where. And they trying to regroup and see what they're, you know, how they're going to handle it. And I thought that was very powerful. I think that was practical. I thought that was really cool, especially seeing who could potentially be, you know, the new team, possibly.
Bishop making his way back.
Yep, Bishop making his way back. And
I was hoping they were going to explore the what they did with Scott and Jean.
Yeah.
Because I have that miniseries and I was hoping they would do something like that.
Yeah. So shortly thereafter, we find out that our X-Men are alive, but they are on various timelines. And the timeline they're on is the timeline of Apocalypse. So we got early Apocalypse, and we have future Apocalypse. So so we know that's going to be the big bad for next season. And our X-Men are split, and they're on different timelines. And we see a young Cable as well.
With the Sisterhood of the Askani.
Yep. And so even though we got completion of this arc from this first season, which was beautifully done, I felt complete. It felt full. It ended on something that you look forward to, but not so hungry that you can't stand it. But it's enough to be like, you know what? I could wait for dessert, but I surely want it. So I'll eat it when I get home. I'll take it to go. Felt like that.
Yeah.
Felt like that.
Yeah, because they could have made us wait.
Yeah, they could not brought that up, you know.
Yeah.
They could let that whole part out. So the fact that they didn't, I thought it was pretty dope. So part of me for this is like, it's unfortunate. Like I said, I don't know what happened exactly with Bo. Don't know. But I think he did a brilliant job.
Yeah.
As more time goes, I'm kind of thinking this probably was nothing big. Because if it was something big, I would think it would be one out and it would have been some other kind of bigger thing happening with him. You know what I mean? Like if you were on the run, you wouldn't pop up to talk about episodes. If you did something so, you know what I mean? Like, you wasn't removed. Like, I can't come back because, you know, whatever. So I'm still real curious. I'm sure everybody is, but I'm just like, I'm very curious. But
I'm hoping they give it whatever it is, and since it's not out, I'm hoping they let it. I mean, James Gunn had his thing, and then it blew over, and then he came back and did Guardians 3. So,
and what's so funny is almost like, and I saw other people talking about it, and I kind of feel it too. It's almost like you're almost afraid to praise them because then what they say some crazy. You see all this stuff, and then it'd be like, like, wait, you know. But you know, I guess for right now, I only can speak to what I know. I know that he's fired, but he's not in jail. How about that?
Yeah.
And he knows X-Men, and he did a great job, and he oversaw a great show. I feel especially proud because he's a fellow Black person that did this. I think that's really dope.
Yeah.
The insight, and because it was a miracle to be able to pull this off. If it was so easy, they would have done it, right?
Yeah.
So the whole thing, like, oh, did he make it? No, not really, because we saw where they couldn't get it right with the.
Yeah.
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 We see what this is, right? And so I think that is dope. I think that is dope. And I think that in the past, the reason why you probably wouldn't have saw it or we wouldn't have known is because, a lot of times we are not seeing these kind of jobs for these kind of shows and this kind of thing, right? It's a slew of people that they could choose over, a qualified black person, easy. And not saying there's not other talented people. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying that different people can have different perspectives that can add or lend to certain kind of things. And sometimes other people's stories borrow highly from other people's stories. And so when they're telling the story, they don't read right because you might be empathetic, but you don't know.
You haven't lived it.
And it's a whole different thing. And so sometimes you see people in places where the story fits. It's all this insight. You get this insight from him being a gay black person. So you could tell in some of the stories and how some things are handled, the nuances and stuff. It's almost kind of like when a woman directs a movie and it's a love scene, you could tell what's important.
Yes.
You could tell the movements, you could tell the flow, you could tell the pace. You could tell when it's a guy doing something and he's just blowing everything up, where everything is fast and powerful and is posturing. You could tell things read different from different cultures and stuff. Things read different. And so certain cultures or certain people lend to certain things because they have the life experience that connects to what you're trying to borrow from. Yeah. And the proof is in the outcome and you understanding like, hey, I've been seeing this thing for years and how come it didn't connect like this? Because the decoder of the puzzle is not in place. But when it is, it's like it lines up. And it's like, how did I hear this and saw this and didn't feel that?
Yeah.
Because you need the right decoder to decipher the feeling, the story, the plot, the insight, the vibe, the temperament, all that stuff.
Hey, like Denzel said, he's like, there's a certain smell to that hot comb running through black hair on Sunday morning.
We all know it.
That we know.
Yeah, we know it.
You can't teach that.
No.
That flavor, that smell, that part of the culture, you can't. Yeah.
But it's part of you and it's universal to your culture. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Because the X-Men really it's the theme.
That's what I'm saying. It borrowed from, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, the theme is just so, it meshes so well. So
yeah,
and to be able to draw from those, So
since it was highly borrowed, even though it wasn't really streamed like that in the beginning necessarily, but it got leaned on later on. And so that's when it became that and it been lined up like certain kind of things, then you need to have the stuff that it lines up with.
Yeah. But let's talk about the challenge in that, is that he did that without being preachy.
Yes, he did. And depending on who's watching, you'll see, like I said, it's layered. So you can see, because some stuff I saw, and I was like, I can see where that's about that, but it still applies to the situation that it needs to do. You know what I mean? So like, it was layered. So it was out being preachy, without being showboaty. It wasn't anything that was outstepping the story needing to be told to prove a point or to make a statement. It was just like that statement better land with the statement that it needs to make. And if it happens to be layered with that, that's fine. But I'm not going to make some side trip on a journey that I'm already supposed to be on.
Yeah.
I just put it in the road on my way on that journey.
Yeah.
And so that
subtext, man.
Yeah.
Subtext
and metaphors. There's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that going on.
Yeah, and theme. You remember me and you and Ryan were talking about how the 5th episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
How that was so great. But even then, like, Falcon was just rolling with stuff like, you're like, man, he's just like, we want to throw it all in when you get the chance, but you're like, that's a lot of stuff to go through in one day.
Yeah, it was very heavy. Like I said, it wasn't wrong, but it's just like, it don't happen in the same day. You know,
Yeah.
you don't get pulled over by cops twice, and the woman clutches her purse, and you don't get the loan from the bank,
bank,
and then
yeah.
you know, and all this kind of stuff. And it's just like it was a trial of Job, but it was just like all in one day, and it was just too much. And sometimes, like I said, you just get excited and be like, I get a chance to tell my story, and you just kind of almost
Throw
like
everything in.
yeah, like verbal diarrhea, just kind of throwing everything out, and it's kind of like. That's not how it's normally served. Yes, those are the ingredients, but you just don't put them in the same dish. We just gotta kind of be careful as people who tell stories and stuff to pace. Pace goes a long way. And hopefully, if you pace it and you put the good things in there and it connects, there'll always be time to give the rest. But I think sometimes we get starved, and I think that's why a lot of things just kind of feel like it's on 10 unnecessarily. It's because, like, you know, you didn't get a chance to speak, and when you do, you just give everything you got. And sometimes that works for things, and sometimes it works against you because people only can process so much. And when you have a lot of stuff going on, you know, it could bombard that personal story. It's almost kind of like, hey, I'm going on this trip, and you packing everything you have in your house to take with you. What's the point?
Yeah.
You can't move. What's the point? It's like you're gonna turn your hotel into your house, and that's why you left. To get a break, to go away, to not have all that baggage on you. So, you know, certain things you could take with you. The fact you're trying to take everything with you could sometimes be too much. But like I said, when you've been starving to express or to make your peace or whatever, you know, even though you want to say, hey, that hurts, you saying, hey, this hurts, and I want this and that, and this, and it just becomes this whole laundry list when in the moment, all you need to say, I was hurt, and then just deal with that.
Yeah, and the audience will find it.
Right. And sometimes that's just enough, and it's universal, and you got a chance to really flesh out what you meant by that. And then you could get to that hurts you, and this part makes me happy, and this part kind of bothers me. And then you get to all that kind of stuff later down the line. But it don't have to be in that whole thing. Just like, you know, slow down, breathe, you know, tell me about your moment right now, you know, one piece at a time.
He did a good job of that, because you don't have to tell every aspect of all of those little stories. You only have to hint at them, and the audience will fill in.
Right.
The audience will fill in the rest.
Right.
You don't have to tell them all the minutia of the story. You only need to tell them that Magneto and Rogue knew each other before.
Right.
And then the rest will come.
Yeah, because I remember the part in Genosha, he was saying that it was inspired by the shooting that happened at the gay club in Florida. He said he frequent that club, and that's kind of like that thing of celebration and partying and stuff, and it just kind of being turned up on his head. And so it was kind of inspired by that.
Wow.
And I was like, wow. But that's something that could be like, you know, that could be somebody saying like they're in a church and this happened to them. Or this was you know, it could be anything where you're celebrating, feeling like you should be at peace and enjoying yourself, and it gets turned upside down. Well done. Well done. If he did a short about that club and that happening, people be like, oh, I don't want to know stuff about that or this or those ain't my. It's the same
made
story.
it big enough for everyone to attach.
Yeah.
Attach their own stories to.
Right. It didn't have to be an agenda. It was just like, you know, expressing something. And he used real world for a situation to play in that. Because, like, you know what? They could have been in the market and something could have happened or whatever, and things could have blew up and all this kind of crazy stuff. But to be in a celebration, right? And everybody's dancing and happy, and then to have that rug pulled from underneath you, that hurts even more because you felt comfortable enough to express and be happy and to do all this stuff. You wasn't like behind enemy lines and you know you got to have your guard up because anything can happen. No, you're in a place of peace, like church. You didn't expect nothing like that to happen.
And a safe space.
Yes, and that's what makes it more powerful when it gets, you know, gets disturbed. And so it was like I said, watching the episodes over again and stuff like this, I could see little things, but it was just like, well done, man. Like I said, I could actually see it being about five different things at the same time, and not one of those things are compromising the other. Like you could sit there and actually watch it with somebody and get something totally different out of it, and every side would still enjoy it in their own way that they saw it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, definitely.
Brilliant. I wanted to bring up this because we kind of talked about it a little bit in the first one before we head out. But you remember we were talking about, like, you know, Pride of X-Men, which is a, you know, that pilot episode that we loved of the X-Men, we really loved. And we were talking about like, you know, the G.I. Joe movie opening scene.
G.I. Joe, G.I. Joe is there. G.I.
How we were kind of referring to those and how those are really just really stood out. And then the beginning of X-Men, the original one with the music and that whole thing, the montage with the plane and the characters flying through and their little montages and stuff for the beginning of that. It's funny because that was also done by a black man. And he co-directed that movie, that pilot episode of Pride of the X-Men, Larry Houston. You know,
Really?
Yeah. And he did all the storyboarding for it, and he did the X-Men series intro, and he did the G.I. Joe movie. He animated and drew all that too. A black guy.
Wow.
Larry Houston. And he
That
worked
opening was beautiful for G.I. Joe the movie.
Yes, it was. And so that's his thing. He's a black storyboard artist, and he was one of the first black storyboard artists to work for like a Saturday morning cartoon. He worked on stuff like Cops and Conan, Swamp Thing, Ninja Turtles, The Real Ghostbusters, Spider-Man's Amazing Friends.
Wow. All those shows had dynamic.
Yep.
You wanted to watch the show.
Transformers,
But
Spawn.
the show was never as good as the beginning.
Exactly. And he actually worked on the first show, and he also worked on the X-Men show. And that's why they pulled him in for that. So he kind of oversees as a consultant, and he's like a library of knowledge of X-Men and stuff like that. And so when it was like three people, it was a couple, and that was the writers, and it was him. And the other couples, they didn't bring them back, but they had him back. And I thought it was kind of weird, right? I'm like, so if you're remaking the show, how come you not pull in the original folks? And then when I found out,
X-Men,
and then they pulled him, I was like, why is he in there? Because I thought they wasn't letting people in, because the ones that didn't come back, they were complaining. And I saw like conversations with them and how they wasn't invited back. And so when I heard that he worked on the original one, I'm like, wait a minute, how come? And then I heard him talk and the stuff that he knew and the stuff that he did. Oh, he was the sauce. He was Bo back then.
Yeah, he was the one. Yeah,
he was Bo back then. That's why they have him back to oversee and consult on this show. So they go to him, even Bo, to consult to see, you know, things to add or maybe things. And I thought that was just so beautiful. And he was like somebody we would never know. We didn't grow up knowing about him and all the stuff that he did. And I thought that was just very interesting how a lot of times you dig back, it's just like, you know, we're everywhere. And it's just interesting how it goes. And we'll go unnamed, we'll go unpraised and stuff like that. Or we'll just be that secret sauce that nobody really talks about, but they'll sure love the dish. Yeah, I just felt proud to see that, and it made sense on some of the stuff, and I thought that was really dope. And he was saying like they liked that pilot episode a lot, but it ended up not happening. And so when Fox was looking to do an X-Men cartoon, they pulled him from that original Pride of the X-Men pilot. And he said like they were fighting a lot about stuff. And he said, and he also made a comment about how on Pride of the X-Men, how about Wolverine being from Australia. And he was like, one of the producers, he said it was popular at the time was Crocodile Dundee. And one of the producers said, hey, you know, that's really popular. And so they wanted to make Wolverine Australian. And he said everybody had to kind of bite their lip and not say anything because they wanted the funding and didn't want to do it, but they gave him that. But he's like saying like if they ever try to do anything with like as far as making the characters be out of pocket and not like themselves, like we're all walking. So he's like wasn't going to do that. So he let him slide on that one with giving Wolverine that accent, but they wasn't going to compromise on anything else as far as like the characters and all that kind of stuff. So that explains why. How can you get that show right but have his accent wrong?
Yeah.
To me, that never made sense either. It's just like, wait a minute. If they didn't care, the whole thing would be crazy. You wouldn't have a dope episode that kind of wraps up all the personalities and stuff like that, and then have mess up and do like a wrong accent like that. That just never read right to me. And so he kind of
just goes to show you that people
gotta have their spider. Everybody gotta have the mechanical spider.
Yeah. The talentless people who are somehow got the power.
Yeah, and then you got the people who on the other side that's creative, who loves the thing, is fighting for the characters, fighting for the story, fighting for the truth of the character. And so I thought it was just very cool I suggest that folks look up Mr. Larry Houston. He's done a couple of podcasts and stuff on YouTube where he conversates about his time working on Transformers and different things like that. And it's just really neat. He's very humble. He got a lot of cool stories. It was just neat, all this different stuff that he did. And he's one of those kind of secret sauce kind of people that you just didn't know what it was. And I thought, like I said, it was just cool.
Nice.
It's cool. And I just wanted to bring him up since we were talking about this show and Bo, because like I said, really, that's what really made this show what it was.
I think everyone should also look up on YouTube. There's a video about whatever happened to Pride of X-Men or something like that. And it talks about how it didn't get remade. And they talk about some of the back and forth that went with the writers and how the writers really, the other two writers really had no knowledge of X-Men. And
that's very interesting. Yeah, like I said, because when this whole show announcement for the show that came out, they were upset and they were talking about it. And I'm thinking and it was funny because it was slightly mentioned where he was saying it was interesting because the writers, they were fine, and they said what they kind of added to it was the fact that they had the drama, and that's why they had the love story with Jean and Wolverine and stuff. So they were great at writing drama, but they knew nothing about the X-Men. So it kind of gave them the best of both worlds, where they would do drama, soap opera stuff that they know people would kind of like on that level, and they made sure that the information and the characters got thrown there too. So. But yeah, if you would write a new series, because they want somebody who knows the character. So they wouldn't really lend to it like you would think. But like I said, they made sure they had Mr. Houston, made sure he was there. And like I said, I thought that was a beautiful thing. Yeah, man, it was just, But look him up.
Look up giant mechanical spiders if you don't know.
Yeah.
And humans in body bags if you don't know.
Blade. And his butt finally got that in part 3. We have to have another conversation related to this, but not related to this at a later time, as far as contributions and what can we do to create more of the stuff we want to see ourselves, because
yes sir,
that's the only way we're going to get it. But I do love when we do things that people think is not in our wheelhouse and it just shines. I think that's just, and I don't know how many times, or how many examples or how much proof somebody needs, but but sometimes, I guess it boils down to the business more so than the art. And so I guess it's not really the priority sometimes for certain situations. And it explains some of the stuff that we get that doesn't line up with what we think it should be. And then when you have this person who happens to have love for a thing, and somebody was, they got lucky enough to kind of, be let off the leash, and they do something brilliant until it's time for them to make part 2, then they want to be all on it. Sometimes we're lucky just to get one out, and it's just funny. But I do cherish them when those things escape and get a chance to be witnessed by everybody, because they are so special. But this, every once in a while, somebody who's supposed to be driving the car gets behind that wheel, and when it happens, it's on point. But
and they drift.
Right. And sometimes they're lucky to get at least one out. Sometimes 2, but for the most part, after that first one, everybody thinks they know how to do it. Everybody knows how to drive after the first person showed you how to do it. So it's interesting. I'm looking forward to the new season 2. I'm not for sure. I think they're already working on it, so it'll be here sooner than later. And so I'm looking forward to that. In the meantime, is there anything that you are looking forward to checking out?
I mean, I think we're all trying to see with Deadpool and Logan.
We got to form Voltron for that. We got to quit playing.
Yeah, definitely.
Mean, all the lions. We need to.
Yeah, definitely. That's. And I hear that they're trying to throw in a lot of cameos. So I don't know.
Yeah. And Ryan Reynolds, we trust.
Yeah.
He's one of the ones who worked out. You know what I mean?
And listens.
Yes.
Listens to the ether to go, oh, this is what they want.
Right.
Let's do that.
And listen to the right things, not just like, hey, we think this is, because we got studios who can't take sarcasm, and then
Yeah.
thinking like, oh, they want to see, you know, Morbius back in theaters. You know, like, no, they were being funny. They were being smart asses. Morbin time. That was a joke. That was a joke. It failed the first time. It you know, and then people would talk about Morbin time and being funny. The studio thought that it was a cry for it because they loved it so much, brought it back to theaters and did worse than the first time. Like, you gotta know how to read the room. You gotta make sure you listen to the right people, and you make sure you listen to what they're really saying, and you know, because sometimes, you know, it's just some people trolling, and just because you get a lot of, you know, hits because they're trolling, that doesn't mean it's true or wanted. Sometimes people are just being funny.
Yeah, bring in some people from that room if you need translation.
Right. Let somebody need somebody, yeah, just in case. Yeah. So, is there anything else you would like to leave on, or?
I'm just I'm excited for season 2.
Yeah.
I'm really happy with what they did. I think they had a task ahead of them, and they pulled it out really well, you know, to be able to bring back a show like that and continue it, but make it better, ride the wave of nostalgia and still bring something to the table, you know what I mean?
Right.
And just, I've never seen a show where they can get so much in. Well, I've seen one other show where they can get so much in such a short period of time, and they did a really good job. Yeah, the other show is Homecoming, by the way, which I highly recommend. I think we talked about it before. Homecoming with
Julia Roberts.
Yes.
Yeah.
30-minute episodes, but packed full, and
I got to rewatch
and you
that.
don't feel like you're missing anything.
I also enjoyed season 2. I didn't think it was as good, but I did. That's with Monet.
Monet, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good series.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Okay. I enjoyed it as well. I'm looking forward to season 2 as well. Kudos to everybody who worked on the show. It was a difficult task, impossible, really. And this just proves that if you have the right people for the right situation, that miracles can happen. And I just hope that this opens up more doors. I hope they work out things with Bo DeMayo. I hope that works out. Even if it doesn't, I'm grateful for what we got, because, you know, I wasn't even expecting this. So I hope they could work out their situation, wherever that is. But like I said, this was a miracle. I loved it. I couldn't imagine anything more. Like, even when I knew the show was coming back, I didn't expect this, and it didn't have to be this good, and it did. And yeah, I'm a believer of the X-Men again. You would think that you would feel this way from a live action thing or whatever. Of all the movies and stuff that we got, and it's always been glimpses of what I wanted, right? Or interpretations that I just kind of took because I knew I wasn't going to get them any other kind of way. Like, I would never see that yellow and blue suit. Like, I would never see, you know, Storm with a mohawk, or I'll never see, you know, Cyclops being the cool leader and not just like the third wheel. I'd never see, and it did it all. It just made up for past aggressions.
Yeah.
It's a cartoon, a 30-minute cartoon. Yeah, they brought the story, they brought the heart, they brought the art, they brought the animation. They did everything. Any kind of emotions you had. As many times watching this show, I either got choked up, or I screamed at the TV. I was so excited, or I couldn't believe it. I had to rewind it. Like I said, I was rewatching episodes just because it looked so beautiful. And that's before everything even jumped off. So the plots and stuff, and just everything. This did a lot of work, and I hope that Marvel is smart enough to use this credit that they have in the best way possible. And I hope, and you know what? And I'm glad this is being followed up by Deadpool that's going to be featuring Wolverine and possibly some X-Men, because I don't think that Marvel will be ready to come after this show. They wouldn't be ready.
Did you see they announced that they're trying to push X-Men to 2027?
From where?
I think it was going to be, I don't know where it was, but I think it was later.
Oh, okay.
But now they're going to push it up to 2027.
If they're not ready, I'd rather wait.
Yeah, I agree.
And keep giving me this show until it comes. Yeah, if they pushing it early, I want it early if they crack the code. If they just want to try to, break the bank, then they could wait. But if they crack the code and they figured out an angle and a way that could really add to everything, then I'm all for it. But if it's just like it's popular, let's jump on it, and they're gonna be moving the way they're moving. Even though I heard that they're supposed to be moving differently, we'll see. I would, I think this show gives them something to chew on, and I think Deadpool will give them something to chew on as well. And hopefully they would actually get what they need from those to kind of understand the direction and the way to go.
That they should go in, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And that don't mean they have to make up something new. You don't have to make up a third rail. There's ways to borrow and still have a fresh view on things. And so I hope that they take heed and figure out what that is.
Yeah.
But yeah. Well, all right. So this has been J and E, and we've been discussing X-Men 97.
And 97.
Yeah, episode 5 through 10. Even though we ended up talking about 1 through 10 anyway. But yeah, that's been our open discussion and spoiler talk.
Yes, sir.
All right. Until next time. Peace.
Peace.